Hey guys, welcome back to Oh the Horror. I know it's been a minute since I actually made a video. In fact, it's been about 6 months, and I've just been kind of working on my stuff and things I need to work on myself, but I do have more time to actually make videos now. So to get right back into it, I think one movie I wanted to do a review on to start off the year at least is a movie named Sinister. It is a 2012 movie that is a supernatural thriller. It is a Blumhouse production film with actors such as Ethan Hawke and James Ransone. Ethan Hawke has been in movies like The Purge and The Black Phone, and James Ransone has also been in The Black Phone, but also It Chapter 2. It is probably my favorite piece of horror that has ever come out within the years. That's a whole monster for a different day, and I'll talk about that whenever, but that is going to be a long-ass video. The main premise behind Sinister is a guy named Ellison and his wife Tracy end up going to a house to stay at for a while Ellison writes his next best seller of a crime novel, true crime novel, of what actually happened in that area and how can he solve this crime. So during this time, the police don't like him because he's taken away their jobs, and Ellison is just trying to figure shit out, and he's trying to be like, okay, I need a best-selling novel to support, obviously, my family. I need the money, I need the fame, I need the whatever. So he hasn't had a bestseller in a good while. So he ends up trying to solve this crime, and he gets deeper and deeper, like any person would, into a crime that obviously is supernatural. He ends up finding some films upstairs, starts watching those snuff films, and ends up finding more and more information about what's going on. You eventually find out it's a demon named Bagul, and he is the mastermind behind everything that happens. Now, there are actually a lot of things I liked about this movie, a lot of it being that it wasn't necessarily scary for me, but I could understand why it's one of the most, I guess, horrifying movies to date. In fact, it's been, I think actually the person that created the movie tweeted it out saying it is scientifically the scariest movie that has ever been released. Now, obviously that's like saying the #1 movie in America, but I mean, for all I know, it could be true. Now, if there's scientific evidence behind it, that probably is true. However, for me personally, I think this movie was a bit more creepy than it was scary. I definitely think it wasn't as scary as other movies I've seen, but to be honest, I'm more scared by physical situations than supernatural. I think it's because I can't really relate to the situation, right? I'm not living in that house. I'm not watching those tapes. I'm not putting myself in situations like that. So it's not nearly as scary as something like Halloween in my eyes. When I was younger, I was terrified of Halloween. Not just because I was a kid, but when I was a kid, I never really was scared of Scream or Friday the 13th, only Halloween. I think it's because Halloween had a person who broke out of a mental asylum, and obviously I only saw Halloween 1 when I was younger, but Michael Myers, who broke out of a mental asylum and who started going on a rampage of kills. And I think it's only terrifying because, yes, it's hard to do, but it's definitely doable and more realistic than Friday the 13th, And I think it's just horrifying to think that a guy could break out of a mental asylum to cause the havoc. That being said, though, it definitely had its creepy moments and definitely had 1 or 2 jump scares that got me. And I think the most prominent jump scare that got me was the one from the lawn work snuff film, and that jump scare just came out of nowhere. The noise and everything, it was just perfectly timed, and it scared the hell out of me. I think one thing the movie does really well is it doesn't give a lot away really quick. In fact, it's the buildup of the movie that really sells it in my eyes. Like Ethan Hawke's character, Ellison, the main character, is finding out all this information, but you don't know any more than what he does. I mean, the only thing you really know that is different than what the main character knows is the fact that obviously a supernatural thing is going on. Ellison probably thinks that, there's something going on, but it's not supernatural until later on. You both, the viewer and the main character, they find out that the being behind it is actually a being from a different world named Magul. And again, I think that's what the film does well, is it doesn't give away too much too quick, and it gives you time to build up the suspense and thrills and everything, and the scares are well timed and well placed throughout the movie. Sometimes they, it is a bit bland for a portion of it, but you also have to remember that it's just a lot of times also a build-up movie of the characters, Ellison, his family, like what their purpose is in the movie, which isn't obviously a main purpose, but they still have an impact on what the movie has in general. Nearing the end, you have this plot twist that I don't think a lot of people will see coming, and if you don't want to hear the plot point, you can skip this video or just move on and skip ahead a bit. But you end up finding out that Bagul uses the kids of the family, I think it's like the youngest kid of the family, to murder their families. After which he would then consume the child's soul, leaving him kind of trapped in this realm forever, wandering the house forever. However, it isn't until later on in which the deputy actually calls him multiple times. He denies the call a good amount of times. He ends up taking it because he's like, alright, well, shit hit the fan. We got to get out of here. So he moves out, burns the tapes or whatever. Doesn't want to deal with that shit anymore. Moves out, moves back to their old home. But deputy calls him like, oh, shit, man. Please tell me you're still at the house. He's like, nah, I moved back. The reason being why he was so scared about that was because Bagul only kills whenever you lived in the house prior to whatever, whenever the murder happened. So the first, the murder that happened there was, I think, the family hanging. So they moved there to do the whole investigation of the snuff film, and that's where the murder happened. So then they moved back to the old house, and then now Bagul is now able to kill them, or able to manipulate the children into killing them. I think the acting really sold a lot of the creepiness and horror to it, because it almost felt realistic the way they did things, and it definitely was a crazy movie in the end. I personally enjoyed it. I talked to a couple different friends, and they were like, oh, it's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. I'm not sure if it's just because I love horror too much, but I don't know. Again, I've talked about it earlier. I'm just not afraid of supernatural things. I'm more afraid of the more physical things, like, Halloween. So I think the major thing for me was, yes, it was a scary movie, but I thought it was more creepy than scary overall, especially with the music in the back that they played during the snuff films. It's just very chanty, very creepy, build up of chanting and creepiness, and the slow moving in the snuff films, and just that slow little build up of whatever's about to happen. Like in the family hanging, it took I think it was 30 seconds to a minute long, and it was just slowly raising them and hanging them, stuff like that. And it was just really, really slow and really, really tense, and it just got a bunch of emotion out of people, I'm pretty sure, and that's why it's one of the scariest movies, not only because it's supernatural, but because it's a horrifying event to witness these things. With how slow and how they paced it, it definitely, the reward was definitely there. You felt way more scared because it was paced super well, and it gave you time for fear to build up in you in general, and I think that's what the film does really well. Me personally, on a scale from 1 to 10, I think I'd probably rate the movie around a 7 or an 8. I didn't hate it, and I actually thought it was really good, but at the same time, it just wasn't my favorite movie I've ever seen, and it definitely was not my cup of tea in ways of whatever. If anything, I'd give it a 6, if anything. Is it watchable? Yes. Would I watch it again? Probably not. Maybe with someone new, because it would be cool to see their reactions and see how scared they actually get. It's definitely one of those movies that you see once, you're just kind of like, it's good, it's pretty good. I mean, maybe, someone out there has seen it many times, because it is a smart movie, it's a good movie, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of like, watch once, and then afterwards just kind of like, do I really want to watch it again? Kind of similar to that of like the Blair Witch Project, which is another movie you kind of see once. I think it's just because you figure out everything that happened during the movie, and then it kind of removes the thrill, the suspense, and now it's just kind of like, oh, now I know what happens. Now it's just a slow build up to everything, which in my personal view, I mean, I put on the Blair Witch Project still, but that's only whenever I'm doing work or something. Because, if I'm doing work while I have Blair Witch Project on in the back, it's a very slow movie, and it's a very, I don't know, it's just calming to have on in the background, because not a lot happens. There's not a lot of, moments in which there's a lot of emotion or yelling or, action-based things. It's very, slow, very tense, it's a very big build-up. However, I do recommend that anyone who hasn't seen Sinister, please check the movie out. It's actually really good, and I think it would give you a good scare for the night. It's definitely one thing I think I would watch with the lights off. However, that does wrap up my review for Sinister. Let me know what you guys think down below. I am kind of new to making reviews and doing things, and honestly, I'm not the best at reviewing in ways, because, I can barely make a list of, what my favorite things are, so, making a whole ass review and dissecting and everything is kind of new to me, but I am obviously trying with this, so I hope you guys did enjoy either way, and I'll see you guys in the next video.